is yet another Tuesday, and welcome to the People's Verdict. I am Patrick Soko, and today I'm joined by the Democratic Party office bearer, Judith KABEMBA, and we are discussing governance issues under the new Dawn government. My guest, welcome to the program today.
Thank you very much, Patrick. How have you been?
I've been okay, and this is the first time we are hosting you on the People's Verdict. Yeah, looking forward for more engagements. Yeah, interesting. To get started, first of all, probably since being the first time we're having this conversation, especially pertaining to you as Judith KABEMBA on the Democratic Party issues. Mostly we have been covering issues pertaining to the wrangles of the DP, but our viewers haven't had an up-close pertaining to who is Judith. Let's just give me a brief background of yourself as a female politician, especially given that we have a few politicians who are female in Zambia. As well, and that will be also a topic that we'll be discussing a little later on. You can just give us a brief profile of your professional background.
Thank you very much. Obviously, like you've said, my name is Judith KABEMBA. I am a mother of two beautiful girls. I am a graduate from the University of Zambia. I started my career with a teaching profession on the copper belt. So I did a diploma in teaching, obviously majoring in English. And then I started teaching in Ndola. I taught at Sansa International School. I taught at Emmanuel International School. And then I changed towns. I went into Chingola. And there I taught at Nchanga Trust School. And then I decided to get back into school. So I went into the University of Zambia, where I studied psychology as my major and public administration as my minor. So first of all, just there, I have 14 years experience in the mining company, because just after I came back from the University of Zambia, I joined Konkola Copper Mines. And I was working in the corporate social responsibility department. So when you hear me comment about KCM, when I comment about the challenges that the people in Chingola, in Kitwe, and Chirilawombwe have regarding the operations of the mines, I speak from a very well-informed point of view. So I would say I have a whole lot of 15 years in my professional career. I joined politics in 2009, I would say, on a low note. And I think that was the time that we were campaigning for Mr. Sata. I never joined the PF as a member, but you remember very well that Mr. Sata had come up with different groups of people in sectors that were just working in the background campaigning for him. So I was one of the critical people that campaigned for him in Chingola. And in 2011, after Mr. Sata formed government, I decided to join politics, mainstream politics. And at that time, I looked at who could I work with. Because when I decided to join politics, for me, politics is a service. For me, politics is a means of delivering to the people. It's a means of standing up for somebody that would not be able to stand up for themselves. I joined NAREP. And I worked with Mr. Chipimo. That time he was president of the party until the time that he decided to retire from politics. And when he decided to retire from politics, myself, the current Minister of Commerce and Trade, Honorable Chipoka Mlenga, Bernard Amsonda, and many other people, we remained holding on NAREP. I must also mention that in 2016, I contested the Nchanga seats, and I was the only female candidate amongst 5 men. I think we had the PF, we had the UPND, we had NAREP, we had Father Luonde, and we had another independent man, I can't remember his name. So we were 5 candidates, 4 were men, and I was the only female. And I must mention that I gave the men a very good run, though I did not win the seat, but I believe that God's time is always the best. So from there, after Mr. Chipimo resigned and retired, I would say, from active politics, we remained with NAREP. And, you know, our people began to push us to what should we do now, you know, because it was a time of a lot of confusion, I think you remember.
Yes.
So you just woke up and the president of the party has said he has retired from active politics. And it was that time that we started working on the DP with my colleagues, our Secretary General, Mr. Evans Chilambwe, who was on the Copper Belt, Mr. Nkonge, and Mr. Nedson Zoa, the late, may his soul rest in peace. So we started revamping the DP. We revamped the DP, and to cut the long story short, we invited Mr. Kalaba to be our presidential candidate. And after that, obviously, I was running mate in the 2021 general elections until now that the wrangles that were in DP are over. The accuser of brethren has left, and we have a party that we want to develop, a party that we believe should be a party that should form government after the UPND.
And that was actually taking me to my first question on this very aspect, where we saw the departure of Mr. Kalaba. What next for the Democratic Party? Does it mean the departure of Mr. Kalaba signified the end of this political party?
Actually, the departure of Mr. Kalaba, since you have asked the question, I think it marked the birth, the rebirth of the DP, because the way we started in 2018, Zambians will recall that when we started in 2018, the DP was a very vibrant party. And everybody was looking at this party and believing that this is a party that is going to form government after whichever political party was there. Nonetheless, there were a lot of things that were happening that led to the wrangles that we had. Some of the issues that we've actually told the nation. And I think the major issues were basically 2 or 3. So the first one was, before the elections, there were those issues of the alliances. Yes. And many political parties and many stakeholders were asking the DP to join hands with other political parties so that we can form an alliance and remove the PF at that time. So the wrangle arose because Mr. Kalaba wanted to take the DP to the PF. And we refused. I speak before God. We refused. We said, no, we don't want to go to the PF. So the wrangle began. Secondly, it was abrogation of our constitution. Because our party constitution has no position of a party president. So our colleague, our brother, was simply invited as a presidential candidate. And after elections, it meant that he needed to step aside. So we felt that if we are a political party in opposition, a growing political party, Patrick, for that matter, if we can't respect a simple constitution of our political party, what would happen if you gave us power to manage this country? And we have the power and we have the authority. What would happen to the constitution of this country? We would be a hazard. So we felt that charity begins at home. We should begin by being honest and truthful in small, small things. We had issues of misappropriation of funds and all those issues we have mentioned. Anyway, fast forward. The matter is still in court. The public may wish to know that the matter is still in court because the court has not yet disposed of the matter. However, there are issues that are going on in the background, and we believe that sooner or later that issue should come to an end. So as it is right now, as I sit here, I would say there is still a case or cases in the courts of law, to be precise, the High Court of Zambia, between ourselves and Mr. Harry Kalaba.
Given that you mentioned that Mr. Kalaba wanted to take the party to the PF, the then ruling party, now, can you also confirm that the DP is in a working alliance with the governing UPND?
The DP has never entered into an alliance with the UPND. Before elections, yes, there were talks between the DP and the UPND. There were also talks between the PF and the UPND. Our people in the party wanted the DP to go into an alliance with the UPND, but that is where the problem came, because Mr. Kalaba had already entered into a secret alliance with the PF. And because of that, there were those wrangles. As it is now, I want to speak and put it on record that the DP is not in any alliance with the UPND. By the way, this is only 2022, Patrick. Elections are coming in 2026. How would you talk about alliances now? This is a time for us to grow our party. It is a time for us to go underground. Personally, I am very good at ground mobilization. So when you see we are silent, it means we have gone underground to make sure that we get the right thing. Come 2026, the DP will field a presidential candidate, and believe you me, it will be a good race to watch.
Interesting, now that you clarify that other aspect. But how are you positioning yourself as a political party to provide credible checks and balances to the UPND administration?
Thank you very much. And that question is quite very important, because of late, the Zambian politics are actually leaving much to be desired. We need to understand what are the roles of an opposition political party. First of all, the desire and the role of every political party is that they should come and unseat the sitting government and form government. Okay? That's what we all aspire for. As Democratic Party, we're looking forward to a time when the UPND leaves power and we take over. We also have a role to provide checks and balances. They are called checks and balances. They are not called insults. They are not called bitterness. They are not called hatred. When you are offering checks and balances, you are looking at the policies that the government is putting across. You are looking at the regulations, the laws. You are looking at the manifesto of the ruling party, and you are saying, come on guys, what you have done here is not right, because it will affect our people negatively in this way and in this way. We feel that the right way to go should be this and this and this. So you criticize them and you also give a solution. Because when you go to criticize, it simply means, Patrick, you are not agreeing with that person's way of doing things. So what are you offering? What are you bringing to the table? And for us as DP, those are the kinds of politics that we want to bring to the table, where we will look in the eyes of President Hakainde Hichilema without insulting him, because what shall it gain us when we insult the president? But we will look into his eyes bravely and we will tell him, Mr. President, here you are wrong, sir. The right thing to do for the benefit of the people is this and this and this. That is what you expect from the DP.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that response. The just ended Kawushi and Kwacha constituency by-elections. Many stakeholders or government critics have argued that the manner in which they were handled leaves much to be desired. Issues pertaining to the constitution and also issues pertaining to the aspect of the judiciary in terms of the judgments that were passed pertaining to the same elections, where the judgment also provided room for speculation and further confusion, so to say, due to lack of a better term. What do you make of that? What would be your take as the DP? I understand you've been monitoring these elections as well very closely.
Exactly. Let me begin by saying that it's very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate that we are where we are as a country. I must mention that Zambia is in a serious constitutional crisis. A situation that if we leave it unattended, this country might be set into fire. Now, where are we coming from? Because these are lessons, Patrick, that we need to learn from, especially as politicians, because majority of the problems that our people are facing are created by us, politicians.
Right, you say so.
They're created by us. The constitution crisis that we have today did not fall from heaven. It was created by the politicians. Okay? Now, you remember very well that there was an amendment that was done to the constitution by the PF government. And different sectors of society stood up and they said, please don't go this way. They begged President Lungu at that time not to sign that constitution because technocrats had gone through that constitution and they saw that there were a lot of lacunas. There were a lot of things that were left unattended. But at that time, at that particular time, President Lungu and the PF were preoccupied at achieving what they wanted to achieve via the constitution. And so they ended up signing a constitution that benefited them at that particular time, but will continue haunting them and generations to come for many years. So the lessons to learn is that when you are in leadership, make decisions in the best interest of the people. And this is our advice to the UPND government. Even you, as you are in office, you have the power, you have the authority. But make sure that what you are doing is in the interest of the public. Because one day, you will leave office. And when you leave office, the decisions you are making today will begin to follow you. So Zambia is in a constitutional crisis. This crisis, if you remember very well, Patrick, it started with the grade 12 clause. You remember?
Exactly. Where we saw some of the MPs who were in the House
later
on being disqualified on account of not possessing a grade 12 certificate. Upon supporting the Constitution themselves.
Look at that high level of negligence. Look at that high level of risking the country. You have members of parliament that sit in parliament and they are drawing an allowance for sitting in parliament, and yet they could not spot that in the constitution there was a clause that was disadvantaging them. They only came to realize when fire fell on them. Simply meaning there were a lot of issues that were neglected. There was the issue of the 14 days petition. You remember that time of the UPND?
Exactly.
From there now, it was now the Kabushi, It was now the Kwacha, which has created a lot of apprehension. It has created a lot of tension in the country. Okay? Because we have the judiciary, and the judiciary is there to interpret the law which is in the Constitution. Now, where we are, our Constitution is in tatters. It is in tatters. Today the Constitution will say this, at this minute it's this, at this minute it's this. It's total confusion. Total confusion. However, the judiciary have a duty to interpret the Constitution as it is. In the mess that it is, they need to interpret it. And this is what we are now seeing. This is what we are now seeing. What is it that should be done now? We need a people-driven constitution. We seriously need a people-driven constitution. If there is a gift, if there's a serious gift that President Hakainde can give to the Zambian people, a legacy that we should all look back and remember him for, it is a people-driven constitution.
When you say people-driven constitution, I remember myself having covered the same constitutional process prior to its enactment. It was also called the people-driven, but at what point did it cease to be people-driven?
You see, you can only say that this constitution is a people-driven constitution if it is representing the aspirations and the interests of the people. Then you can say, if the lowest person on the ground can have a voice in a constitution, if the constitution is accepted by majority people, then you know it is a people-driven constitution. Because we are saying it's a people-driven constitution because it is representing what the people want. What the people want. Not a constitution where because you want a third term or because you want a 60th term and therefore you make a constitution and you say it's a people-driven constitution. No. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
Interesting. Well, our dear viewers, you are watching The People's Verdict on Tuesday, and today my guest is coming from the Democratic Party, and she is the office bearer, Madam Judith KABEMBA. We are discussing governance issues under the New Dawn government. A number of issues have been addressed, and you have not missed much. We still have a long way to go on our program as we try to tackle quite a number of topical issues that have been happening in the country. Now, getting into another aspect of our discussion this afternoon, let's also look at the issue of women representation, especially pertaining to the aspect of the 50-50 representation. This is Zambia's ratified various treaties at regional as well as at a global level that prescribe that we need to also conform to the 50-50 representation in terms of governance, politics, in all sectors of the economy. I just want to also see if I can pick on the perspective of the Democratic Party regarding how we should go about this very aspect.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Maybe before I even respond to the issue of 50-50 representation of the women at all levels of decision making, let me just make a comment on the Constitution, a further comment.
Okay, let's get back to that.
Yes, in regard to the Constitution and the by-elections and everything. As Democratic Party, we have made a submission. It's unfortunate that as a political party we do not have members of parliament to move a motion in the House. And so in this particular case we can only work with the members of parliament from other political parties. And so we are advocating that a motion should be moved in the House where when we begin a process of amending the Constitution, we believe that should be done.
Yes.
That by-elections must be scrapped off. By-elections must be scrapped off. Why are we saying so? When a government wins election, they have a mandate of being in office for 5 years. And that 5 years is expected to be a time when they are supposed to deliver to the people. But what has been happening in Zambia is that from day one, when general elections end, we go into by-elections. So it's a political situation that continues in the country. It's campaign mode that continues in the country. It's division that continues in the country. At the same time, the treasury keeps on spending money after money after money in these by-elections.
But the simplest question I would ask is that, what system would you support in an event a member of parliament dies? It
is very simple. We have what we are proposing as Democratic Party. If a particular seat is held by the DP and the member of parliament for DP goes to the Lord, the DP must be given an opportunity to nominate another person that should take over that seat. It's that simple. The political party that was holding that seat, in an event of death, in an event of illness that leads to a person becoming incapacitated, or the person is in an accident, just these natural calamities that happens to people. The party where that particular MP is coming from should nominate a person and take over that seat. In an event that the election is petitioned, as it was in Kabushi, the election is petitioned, there is this controversy of nullification and disqualification, which we haven't yet been told clearly. If that situation occurs, the person who came second in the race should simply take over office. That way, we are going to reduce on these unnecessary expenditures. Patrick, how many by-elections have we had from last year till today? All this money that has been spent, are you telling me we could have not bought blankets in UTH? Are you telling me we could have not bought an MRI machine at UTH? Are you telling me government could have not even procured the Panadol that people are crying for? We are spending money on unnecessary things. Zambia is a developing country. And if you need to develop as a country, you need to start making tough but strategic decisions that should lead the country into transformation and development. Given an opportunity as president of this country, by-elections would be a thing of the past.
Interesting. Now, what happens if an independent member of parliament dies?
If it is an independent member of parliament that dies, it is the same. The second person that came out of the race should pick up the mantle. The second person that came out of the race should pick up the mantle.
Others have argued that this may also orchestrate assassinations.
Well,
because I want to take over.
Human beings will always be human beings. And the problem is, yes, it is a level of selfishness. But even now, we have heard stories of people assassinating themselves, assassinating others, people doing this and this for the love of power. But God forbid, there is always a way that God preserves his people, especially those that are working towards saving the lives of his children. Our point as Democratic Party is that by-elections are a waste of resources. They are a waste of time. By-elections are a source of divisions and conflicts in this country. We are failing to develop, we are failing to move from a political environment. Why? Because we are always looking at the ruling party wants to get the seat, the opposition wants to prove that we are still popular and we need to get the seat. Let's have elections 5 years, in 5 years' time, and of that government, which the party that forms government should get the mandate and begin developing the country.
Which members of parliament are you engaging? Are you engaging the backbenchers or the other side? We
are engaging everybody. We are engaging everybody, especially those that have got a heart for Zambia. Like I mentioned, the DP has no representation in the House. But we need the motions. We need these bills in the House. What shall we do? We will not sit and say, let's watch, but we will engage those that are there and present our case before them, our good will before them, so that they are able to present it in Parliament. And that brings me to the second question which you asked regarding the 50-50 representation. When you look at what is happening in Zambia today, it's quite very unfortunate, very unfortunate. And especially this particular tenure that we have started. I must mention from the beginning that as Democratic Party, we have stated, and I am stating it right here, that we are not happy with the numbers of women that we were given in cabinet. We are not happy. We felt that more women should have been given an opportunity to save. And we are still asking the UPND government, we are asking President Hakainde Hichilema to look at this matter. We cannot have 4 women in cabinet. No, we can't. It is unacceptable.
Are the women available, willing to serve?
The women are there. Zambia has a bank of women, a bank of wise women that can represent this country. All we need to do is to give the women an opportunity. As we give the women an opportunity, let us look at what are the issues that cause women to shun, for example, politics. Okay? So what we are saying as Democratic Party is that it makes sad reading that year after year we keep talking about 50%, 50%, but it doesn't happen. Every Women's Day celebration in March, you see NGOs coming out, you see different stakeholders coming out, and they are saying, no, we need 50-50 representation. After the 18th of March, everyone goes quiet. You are a journalist. Tell me, which organization, including the women organization, after the 18th March, is still talking about the 50-50 representation?
They are not as active as they should.
Everybody is quiet. Let's not even sugarcoat it, Patrick. Everybody is quiet. But on the 18th of March this year, like it was last year, everyone was talking, no, 50-50, 50-50. After that, everyone has gone quiet. We cannot achieve in that way. We can't. The Bible says from the time of John the Baptist, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent shall take it by force. Not violence, Yalubudi, no. It is violence of being taken core. It is violence of using wisdom. And so as Democratic Party, what we are saying is that we feel and we believe that the wise thing to do now, Patrick, is to use the law in order to gain numbers. I'll give you an example. Rwanda, in 2018, they made deliberate laws that made sure that 30% of parliamentarians were supposed to be women, whether you liked it or not. They were supposed to be women. Okay? Now, when you come to Zambia, we have no laws that compel, one, the government to appoint women. There are no laws that compel political parties to adopt women. It is a free-for-all. So what we need are laws. First of all, laws that are going to compel the National Assembly to say 40% or 45% have to be women. Whether you like it or not, it is obligatory. They have to be women. We also come to the Constitution. We also come to the... That's why we need a people-driven Constitution. And this time now, I will even replace the word people. We need also a women-driven Constitution where the aspirations of the women will be represented. Okay? In the Constitution of Zambia today, the Republican president has the power to nominate up to 8 members of parliament. I'm sure you're aware, right?
But as President Church done well on that?
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. So the president is given these 8 free. Mr. President, when you form government, you can nominate up to 8 members of parliament. Okay? What has been happening? We have seen more men being nominated than women. Okay? Now, when we are saying as Democratic Party that we need laws that should compel, for example, a law that should compel the Republican president to say, out of the 8 people that you need to nominate, Mr. President, 4 should be women. 2 must be youths, and the 2 must be men. Because we know that it's been a custom that there'll be more men at the end of every election than women. So we can even leave it at 1 man being nominated. Let's have 4 women nominated, let's have 3 youths nominated, and let's have 1 man nominated. That way it is a deliberate law which should compel the president. The laws that we have, Patrick, today, they are discretionary laws. They give the president chance to do what he wants to do. But what we need now are compelling laws that should compel the president to say 4 must be women, 3 must be youths, and 1 must be a man. By the way, when you look at the population, we have more women than men. We have more youths than men. Are we going to continue only using the youths and as weapons of violence? When it comes to campaign, it's the youths that are in the forefront who we want to use. But when it's time for appointments, the youths are never there. When it's times for door-to-door foot soldiering and all that, it is the women. But when it comes to the appointment, where are the women? The same women who were campaigning should also be given a stake. The Bembas say, Chibinda wa bamba no kwakanya akanya. If the women are in the forefront campaigning, if the women are in the forefront supporting a change of government, when there's a change of government, let's give the women an opportunity to save.
Do you think the removal of the Ministry of Gender has also affected the gender agenda in the country?
Exactly, exactly. The removal of the Ministry of Gender, I will call it, it was a mistake. It was a mistake. It is something that a government needed to really brainstorm on. Because when you are looking at the Ministry of Gender, the problem is people think when you're looking at the Ministry of Gender, you are only looking at women. No, you're not only looking at women. It is simply a ministry looking at the affairs of women, affairs of men, the intricacies, the deep, deep intricacies. How are the women doing? How are the men doing? Right now, if we had a Ministry of Gender, I'm sure the Minister of Gender would have been getting statistics of how many women have been empowered through the CDF, how many men have been empowered through the CDF, and if there are women that have been empowered through the CDF, what projects are they doing? Do they have mentorship? Do they have skills for that project they are doing? All those issues. But that has been taken away. It has been taken away. We need to find another way to have the interests of the Ministry of Gender being represented. And for us as Democratic Party, we are also submitting that there is need, Patrick,
yes,
to have a gender commission. We need to establish an independent gender commission.
But the gender commission is provided in the constitution, but the president successive presidents haven't been appointing the commission.
And this is what we are talking about. This is what we are talking about.
Does that reflect political will?
It doesn't reflect we think are not important. They actually take away a lot. They actually take away a lot. Whether we like it or not, the Ministry of Gender is needed and was needed. Now that it is not there, let's have the Gender Commission operating. Let's have the asking, what skill does that person possess? Okay?
Yes.
Secondly, what business initiative does that person possess? Has that person undergone training? Has that person undergone counseling? We are living in a society where money is scarce. Poverty is all we see. So today, if somebody comes and just gives you a kamane, here, the chance that that money might not multiply is very high. Because by the time they reach home, they'll find there's no sugar, there's no mealie meal, there is no salt,